Right? Right?
I think we're ready to start. It looks like everybody has food now. We're all sitting down. Yes. So as we get started, or right before we get started, I am going to introduce Cassie. For those of you who do not know her, she is our Servant Connect president and our partner with Si Se Puede. So she is our huge supporter and why we got everything started with Si Se Puede and why we are a huge success with that and the sponsor with our food. So we definitely appreciate that. So I will introduce her and let her take over for that.
Happy Saturday, everyone. How y'all doing? Good. What a great turnout. This is fantastic. Juana, David, just an incredible job. Can we get a round of applause for both of them? Amazing. So as Juana shared, my name is Cassie Allia-Ray, and I am the CEO and founder of Serve and Connect. Can I see a show of hands? Who is not familiar with Serve and Connect? Got a few people in here? So just briefly, we're a nonprofit with a mission of fostering positive change through police and community partnerships. I started the organization after my husband, who was a police officer, was killed in the line of duty in 2015. And when that happened, I felt very deeply called to find a way to support healing between police and the communities they serve. Over time, what I came to see is that at the end of the day, what we all want is more the same than it is different, right? We want the people we love to be protected, the communities that we live in to be safe, and our kids to be able to thrive and have bright futures. Do y'all agree with that? And that's what you're doing here today, right? You're coming together in this incredible way to identify what are the ways that we all, whether you're a police officer, a social worker, a victim advocate, a service provider, you all play such a critical role in ensuring that all members of our community are loved and supported and have access to the care that they need, especially in the times of need. And that's not just the role of a police officer. That's not just the role of victims advocate or a social worker or service provider. It's us all being on the same page and working as a team, because you each come with different perspectives, experiences, gifts, and talents. But when we share that same message of care and compassion and looking out for every member of our community, that's when we make the biggest difference. Do y'all agree with that? So what you are doing is so important. I applaud you. We are so proud to be but a small part of this. So with Serve and Connect, we have a variety of different programs, but at the heart and soul of it, we believe that those who live and serve in communities know what the greatest needs are and are best equipped to tackle those challenges. And so what we look to do is really hear from our partners, what ideas do you have that would make a difference? And it's our greatest joy to be able to just uplift and magnify those visions for change. And so that's really Si Se Puede. Juana was way too generous. Si Se Puede is not Serve and Connect or Cassie. It is David and Juana and Deputy Colon. Like, it's all of the partners that have been by our side and made this happen. We are just thankful to be a part of helping to facilitate that vision for change and help to coordinate resources that can make that happen. So the lunch today was provided actually through a grant through Central Carolina Community Foundation, which we were able to get to support Si Se Puede. And so again, it's how we all work together to make a difference, and what you're doing here is not only going to make a huge impact on the lives of people in our communities, but is also an example for other communities to follow. So bravo again, thank you so much for everything that you're doing, and if there are ways that we can further assist and support the important work that y'all do, we'd be honored to do that. But just don't lose hope, and please know that I know that there are the hard days and the tough moments, but you are making a difference, and our world is a better place because of you. Thank you. So David wanted me to share one of the programs that we have. Has anyone heard of Greg's Groceries before here in the room? A few. I'm sure some of you have handed out boxes. So Greg's Groceries is one of the programs we have with Serve and Connect. It's where we package boxes of non-perishable food alongside police and community partners, and those boxes can then go back with our police officers to assist, whether maybe you're on a social welfare call, or you're checking on a senior, or you come across a domestic violence victim who's in a tough time and maybe hard on food and running low on resources. That box of food is just intended as an opportunity to help open a door for a positive conversation that hopefully can lead to additional resources being provided. So since launching in 2017, it's about, I think we're up to 16,120 boxes that have been packed with over 75 police departments, and we recently expanded into North Carolina. But that is a resource. We are gearing up on October 3rd for our annual big packing event. It'll be on the Walmart at Forest Drive. Y'all are welcome and encouraged to come. That includes police and non-police partners. It's really a celebration for us all to do this together. I'll also say for our police partners and victim advocates, we do have our Compassionate Acts program. So you have access, you can call us 24/7. If you come across a need, a gap that can't be filled, our first goal will be to connect to a resource. So let's say you've come across someone, a domestic violence victim. Our first ask will be did you call Sister Care? We want to get people into the resources that can actually help, because Serve and Connect, we're not a direct service provider, but we all know that sometimes shelters are full and those options aren't out there. And so we work together to then stand in that gap. So we've covered hotel rooms, baby hygiene items, additional food, clothing, bedding. Really we want to connect to the resources that are available, but we will help fill that gap. And so I know Juana and David have that number. I'm happy to share. Do you have any questions for me? Would encourage you all, please get involved with Si Se Puede. We're very proud and excited to see that continue to grow. There are surveys on the table. That was Si Se Puede. Can I see, actually, everyone who's a member of Si Se Puede, can you stand, please?
Don't be afraid.
All right, round of applause for our partners. So they're incredible, and because of the power of the members of our group, we have several subcommittees. One of them is leading the fiesta, which Juana will talk more about. Another is led, we're trying to get feedback from different providers to understand where we're at as a community when it comes to building or providing support to bilingual communities. But there's so much more that needs to be done, could be done, should be done, and we can only do it with the power of people to drive that. So please, if you're interested in signing up, please talk to Juana or David. We'd love to have you, and we need you at the table. Thank you.
I don't want to assume that everybody here knows what Si Se Puede is. A lot of people do, but there might be a few that don't. It means yes, we can. And it was a catchy phrase. And we started this 2-3 years ago, almost 2 years, a little over 2 years ago. And the goal was to get law enforcement, EMS, and fire, emergency services providers, first responders, to work with the communities, specifically the Hispanic community. Because there have been problems where they're scared to call, they get deported, and all these other myths. And so I think we come a long way, and she's going to talk about the fiesta, where we have created that trust with the community. But South Carolina, it's not just Spanish. We have a lot of different folks from different parts of the world. Seth spoke earlier, and he's going to talk later about other people that stay here in South Carolina, from Afghanistan and all these areas. So as a law enforcement officer or service provider, when I heard Seth told me we got other people from other parts of the world that are coming, what that tells me is that I need to prepare. The worst thing is for me not to prepare, and they get here and they're here and they're going to be victimized, because they usually do, because they're in a new country and everybody knows that they prey on these victims. So we are working on some things to create, only for Richland County right now, a huge Zoom interpreting line with over maybe 10 or 20 languages. I know we've used language line, and a lot of you here use language line, but I don't know if you know that Jeanette has a company called Hit Services is in your bag, and she's here in South Carolina, Greenville. I know when I talk to people on that language line, they're from California. If I wanted them to respond, I don't think they'll be able to respond. And sometimes they don't know the culture. I'm not saying that they're not a great company, but we need one right here in South Carolina that trains with us, that talks with us, that'll help us out. So my goal is to maybe have hit services around the state where we have somebody in here and we hire our own folks from the state. So that's the goal. But a little bit about Si Se Puede again. If you want to join, please let us know. The whole intent of this training today was to make sure that you guys got support. Because I've been doing this since 1985, and I remember it was terrible. Well, that's at my age. So I've been doing it for a long time. But
How long you been doing it?
anyway, so the whole thing is this, right? And you heard a lot about the legal terms. Be careful when you translate, be careful when you interpret, be careful when you do this, which is good to know. But I believe everybody in this room are doing the best that they can. But the reason for this training is we're going to continue training to improve your skill sets. That's what we want to do. Because I catch myself when I'm translating it from another country, I want to make sure that that word means that word, and sometimes I have to clarify. So the officers, they really need to get the 5 W's, right? Who, what, when, where, and why. When they're out there, that's the first contact with the person that doesn't speak, right? If they can get that, they can find out what's going on, get a warrant. Then it falls to the victim advocate and the investigator. Now, victim advocates and investigator will probably need a little bit more training in improving their skill sets because they're taking statements. And like I said, we have other people from other countries. We're also working on a program to translate these documents and created a listserv that we can all share with different agencies, where you can put your agency's name on that form electronically. And the good thing about it, that it's already approved by the attorneys that we have in this group. So if you're really interested in joining Si Se Puede, please come. I encourage you to go to the fiesta and join us there. We're doing a lot of other programs besides Si Se Puede. But I want to open this floor here for questions or concerns or ideas, because it's not just me and Juana, it's everybody in this room. And together we can make South Carolina better. So does anybody have any questions, concerns, or anything they want to say? We got a lot of shy people here. Yes, there is one. Can you come up here, please? And introduce yourself, and then tell them the language that you speak.
Hi everybody, I'm Sandas Hussain. I think I can do without the mic because I can speak loud enough. I used to be an SRO after going to the road, so I kind of know how to project, especially with my students or former students. The languages that I speak are Pashto, which is spoken in Afghanistan and northern Pakistan, and Urdu, so that's a national language of Pakistan, but when spoken it's the same as Hindi, which is in India. I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 5 years now. I am the first generation of immigrant from my family, so I know that crime doesn't hit just one group of people, it hits everybody, especially with the recent influx of refugees from Afghanistan. It does affect them. We still do not have a lot of Dari speakers and a lot of Farsi speakers that are coming from Afghanistan and Iran area, because that border does hit between Afghanistan and Iran. The problem that we have, that I've noticed for the South Asian community, is that we do not have advocates that can help out and break that. I know that with a lot of the Spanish speakers, we have a lot more advocates to kind of help break that barrier. But we do need more advocates for the South Asian community, and I think at times even the Far East community as well, because we don't have that much support, and for the Arab community as well.
So, I handed out at all of your tables there. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
I just want to know, how do I get involved with Si Se Puede?
So see us once we finish, and I will give you the information.
Can I share one thing
Yes.
too, before you dive in? I just want to say, so I think the point you raise is so important, and so I'll also just say with Serve and Connect, if you have an idea of something that is not being met through, like, because Si Se Puede is really focused on the Hispanic community, but if you have an idea for outreach, like, that could help support relationships relationships with Afghan refugees, for instance, reach out to us. Like, to date, I think most every request we've come up with some creative ways to fill them. So if there are things that would further support that, reach out and let's see if we can brainstorm. And that's how Si Se Puede. It took some time. We applied for a grant together, but we got that to support the work. So I just want to let you know, when you think about how to work with Serve and Connect, like, we want to help support you in doing what you do best, and that's helping our community and serving people. So if you have an idea or way to do that, let's brainstorm together. So thanks, Juana. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, come on.
And get away with it.
Hey, so I'm Master Deputy Colon. I'm also a part of Si Se Puede. Just to simply explain, I think the mission that we have is just getting resources, right? We didn't work together. I think David was at Lexington County at the time, in KC Police Department, and I was at Richland County. We just needed a group that would work together, share resources so that we could benefit the community. That's why we're here. That's the main mission. And just to simplify, that's what Si Se Puede does, and a slew of other things. But it's just a lot of people with resources just coming together and sharing those resources so that everybody can know what we have.
I'm sure that there's some nonprofit organizations in here that do bilingual stuff. I would like to hear from you. You can come up here and give us your experience, because this is not just for law enforcement. Don't be shy. This is the time. Come on. Okay, here she comes. Tell them what you do and the important job that you do, please.
Yes. Hello, I was not prepared, so hang in there with me. My name is Flavia West, and I'm the Executive Director at the Dickerson Children's Advocacy Center. We are a nonprofit in Lexington. We work very closely with our law enforcement partners and DSS to fight child abuse. So we provide forensic services, and Detective Carvajal is actually one of my very close partners that we work with our Hispanic community. So if y'all know, do y'all know what child advocacy centers do? Kinda, sort of, okay, great. So I was the only one up until we just hired another bilingual staff, so she's gonna be trained to do forensic interviews. So I'm actually qualified through DSS to interpret it, so that's how I'm able to do our forensic interviews in Spanish, which obviously is a huge help. We love interpreters, especially if they're in person. You know, it's hard to imagine a child having to tell you what's going on, what has happened to them, the kind of, whether it's sexual, physical, domestic violence, human trafficking. I think it's really important that we have people like Detective Carvajal and all of you investigators to help us investigate these cases and give the kids a place for them to talk to somebody in their language, because what I find too, and we made this change at Dickerson, some of our kids will be like, oh yeah, they speak English, right? So, okay, we start the interview in English, and I always say, I also speak Spanish, so if at any point you need to switch, you can. And believe it or not, when it comes to the time for them to tell me what actually happened, just like that, they switch to Spanish, and they didn't even notice. So remember, their parents at home speak Spanish, so what language do you think they speak at home? What's the language that they're used to? More than English, so we've seen that too. So anytime we have a Spanish-speaking family, even if the child speaks English, they come to me for the forensic interview because of this instance. We provide family advocacy, and we also provide therapy services. I'm a licensed social worker, so I am the only bilingual therapist right now that can do therapy, but again, something is better than nothing. So yes, please reach out. I have my cards if you want to get it. I'm more than happy to. We do a lot of outreach, presentations. Anybody that wants to hear about us and what we do, I am more than willing to come and talk to you, your agencies. We are working on doing presentations for law enforcement and DSS to kind of help them help us. So we can work together when it comes to investigating these child abuse cases, and we're not working against each other. What I mean by that is, we are trained. I am a trained forensic interviewer. I am trained to talk to these kids about what was alleged or what came to the door. And a lot of times we have to do a lot of education with making sure you all give us the bare minimum, let us talk to these kids. Let me be the one to get the information that you need, because a lot of times these kids have talked to 10 different people, and by the time they come to me, they're like, heck to the no, lady, I already talked to 10 people, I'm not talking to you. And at the end of the day, we need those interviews. So interviews are recorded for a reason, right? So they can be used in court when it's appropriate, and then you have, right, you can say that these kids went to a child advocacy center and they got the services that they needed. And again, follow up. We provide family services connections, so we work with a lot of you all in connecting them to different resources that they have, as well as therapy. So I know I just rambled a lot, but that's what we do.
I got a question.
Yes.
So I know you're in Lexington, but would you be able to come to Richland to do the interviews?
So we are in Lexington, so in the Richland County, y'all have the Met, so the Metropolitan
But they don't have
CAC.
a Spanish.
They don't, right. So what I can tell you is, we want these kids to talk to someone that can speak their language. So we can make exceptions where you're like, hey, we truly feel like this case is gonna need somebody that can speak to them in their language, not necessarily use an interpreter at that time. You're more than welcome to send that referral over. We are mainly the 11th Judicial Circuit we cover, but we would never deny an interview for a child that needs it, if that makes sense. I'll give you my card. Thank you.
Let's try this again.
Bueno, yo voy a hablar en español.
I'm going to speak in Spanish.
Muy buenas tardes a todos ustedes. Muchísimas gracias. Ok. Perfecto.
Si le hable despacio, así puedo tomarle nota.
Claro que sí. Mi nombre es Dulce.
My name is Dulce.
Trabajo para Acercamiento Hispano de Carolina del Sur.
I work for Hispanic Outreach of South Carolina.
Esta organización tiene más de 30 años aquí en Carolina.
This organization has been here for more than 30 years in South Carolina.
Creo que muchos de ustedes la conocen y otros no.
Many of you are familiar with it, some of you are not.
La razón por la cual no se conoce,
The reason why it's not known,
las personas que estaban ahí involucradas ya tienen más de 80 años.
because the people who were part of the organization are more than 80 years old.
Ahora comenzamos con una nueva personas.
We have started now anew with new people.
Mi rol en esta organización
My role in this organization
es tener todos los recursos para podérselos dar a nuestra comunidad.
is to have all the resources available to give them to our community.
Nosotros son referidos las personas que tienen situaciones como violencia doméstica y otros problemas mayores.
People who are facing domestic violence and other more serious situations are referred to us.
So, por eso necesito tener toda la información en mi mesa antes de referirlos.
That's why I need to have all the information on my desk before I can refer them to services.
Yo estoy certificada para DHED con HIV, que es lo que estoy haciendo, prevenciones de diabetes, colesterol y glucosa, colesterol y HIV.
I'm certified by DHEC, and what I'm doing is prevention on diabetes, cholesterol, glucose, and HIV.
So, mi rol es educar a mi comunidad y poder prevenir estas enfermedades.
So my role is to educate the community and prevent these diseases.
La semana pasada tuve un positivo de HIV.
I had somebody who tested positive for HIV last week,
So, esto es un problema muy grave para nuestra comunidad.
and this is a very serious problem for our community.
Es por eso que necesito educar a nuestra comunidad y saber más de los recursos y a dónde referirlos.
That's why I need to know more, educate more our community, and be aware of where the resources are, so I can refer them to those resources.
Nuestra organización está un poco limitada, ya que tenemos solamente un grant que es de DHED.
I'm sorry,
Un grant.
grant, okay. Our organization is a little bit limited or constrained because we only have one grant was issued or given by DHEC.
Y es solamente lo que estoy haciendo yo.
And that's only what I'm only working on.
Pero yo veo mucha necesidad en nuestra comunidad.
But I see so much need in our community.
Tenemos reportes de violencia doméstica.
We get reports of domestic violence.
Tenemos reportes de donde las personas necesitan donde dormir.
We have reports of people needing a place to sleep,
Comida, ropa.
feed themselves, for clothes as well.
Uno de mis mayores sueños desde que comencé esta organización es poder tener un grande shelter.
One of my biggest dreams since I started working for this organization is to have a big shelter.
Ya que las organizaciones son muy limitadas en esa área, como Sister Care, que doy un aplauso a ellos por su gran trabajo, pero son muy limitados.
Because all other existing organizations like Sister Care are very limited in the services that provide in that area. I applaud them, but they are really limited.
So ahora mi enfoque es en buscar más grants, más oportunidades para poder traer estos recursos, ya que tengo esta organización a mi mesa, solamente necesito las conexiones y para ello les voy a presentar a Judith, que es la que está ahorita tomando los grants para poder hacer más, expandir nuestros recursos.
And in order to get more grants, I need to have more resources available and to make more connections. And because of that, I'm going to introduce you to Judith, who is dedicated to writing grants and get those connections.
Le dejo la palabra a Judith para que se introduzca.
And
Muchas
she has the
gracias.
floor. Judith.
Hello everyone, my name is Judy Castro, and Josie and I met maybe about 5 years ago. I was helping through COVID to put together events for the community, and so I'm a community health worker, and what I do is I network, I do outreach, and I help to pull the resources together for the community. So everything that she said is basically what I assist her with, and we hope to be able to network with you and reach out to the community to continue the process.
And Dulce is a very humble person, and I met her years ago while I work at Lexington. And as a victim advocate or law enforcement officer, we have people that unfortunately were killed. And then they come to victim services, and then we do our solo application and send it to the state. But they want to send the body home. Has anybody here been through that process? Not easy. But when you get on the phone and say, Dulce, this is what I got it. She set up a funeral home that helps us send these bodies back to their country and do all the paperwork. And then I had other occasions where somebody needed a job, right? Female domestic violence that deported the husband, she's alone with the kids. So we know after a while she's gonna get kicked out of that apartment or the house. What I do? I call Dulce. And Dulce makes sure she has either a job or a place to go. Dulce is very humble, but she works so hard in the community. I have the biggest respect for Dulce and the folks that she knows and a great organization. So before you leave here, if you want to get her number and you want to call somebody, call Dulce.
Hello everyone, I am Rosa Suarez. I am here on behalf of the Rape Crisis Center. So we serve counties of Horry and Georgetown counties. So I am the first bilingual advocate that the Rape Crisis Center has. Before then, they were just using online interpretation. So I'm glad to be able to be there, right, to be able to help our community, our Spanish-speaking community. We do things such as counseling, legal advocacy, so we work very closely with our local law enforcement, and it's been going great. But I want to take this opportunity because we currently, like I said, we do counseling, but our counselor, her contract recently ended, and we're actually looking for somebody, even if it is via telehealth, right? Somebody to help us in that area because we are using global, but of course it's always better, right, to be able to have somebody that speaks that language firsthand. So yeah, that's what we do. I'm with the Rape Crisis Center, and if you guys know of anybody that is able to offer us that service, right, that telehealth bilingual counseling, I'm right over there. Please come see me, or just let me know who you are so I can go to you, because that is very important, that we're able to offer that service to our clients, our Spanish-speaking clients, which unfortunately, we are seeing more of Spanish-speaking victims coming to us, seeking our services. Thank you.
Okay. I know we have a lot of people that have resources that would like to speak, so we did not get to do what it is that we intended this lunch hour that was supposed to be. So before we move on to everything else, I do want to really quickly say, we have handed out the fiesta flyers. They are on your table. September the 21st is our fiesta. It will be held at the KC Park. Everybody is invited. Please come out and support fiesta. It is we are going to be celebrating the first official year of Si Se Puede as well. Trying to think what else. There is also a flyer that was put out for you guys to scan that has the resources. If you would scan it and answer the questions on there, it will give us a better understanding of what resources are still needed out in the community. If you will do that, we really appreciate it as well. In your bags, everybody received one of these red cards with the Si Se Puede information. One side is in English, one side is in Spanish. It gives you a little bit more information about what it is that we do, why we do what we do in itself. Since we didn't do our activity, if everybody will take one of the sticky notes, write your name on it, and hand it up to the front, I would really appreciate it, please. Are we done?
We have about 15 minutes.
Okay. So we do these two and then, okay.
Hi guys, my name is Cassandra, and I am an intake screener at the South Carolina Legal Services. I am one of 2 intake screeners who speak Spanish. I just started there like 3 months ago, so I'm still learning. But I'm very lucky to have people who support me, who believe in me when I don't. And while our legal services are, sometimes we have exceptions for undocumented individuals, especially if they are domestic violence victims, because we have a VOCA grant. Sometimes you do have to be a citizen or a permanent resident to have, to be offered services, but that's mainly what I do.
Hi everyone, I'm Dulce. I introduced myself earlier. I work with South Carolina Legal Services as well. I'm a bilingual outreach paralegal for diverse communities, so that means that I go throughout the state and try to bridge those gaps in justice for individuals who are underserved. And this mainly includes the Hispanic community, Asian Pacific, Native American communities, as well as other underserved communities like farm workers. And part of the work that we do, just so you all are aware, because I don't think not all of you know what we do, is legal services. And that's anything civil, like education, housing, family law, consumer law, a little bit of immigration. For the people in this room, we work with a lot of domestic violence victims, so that means that we can offer like a trifecta of services, order of protection, divorce and custody, and immigration support as well. So I would encourage you to reach out to me or my colleagues here, Cassandra, I'm sorry. I actually haven't met her until today, if you haven't noticed. My colleague Diana is over there. She works with farm workers. And also Kelsey, she's also bilingual. So we're here to support our community. And if you need us, don't hesitate to give us a call. I'm happy to give you more information if you come up to us. Thank you.
So I have one more thing. Something that I get called for a lot is when parents are at the hospital and sometimes they don't add last names or they're spelled was, and that's something we can do even, yes.
I wanted to piggyback on you when you're done. I wanted to mention one more thing to you.
Okay, and even though like the person might be undocumented, we would do it because the application would go in the child's name, so.
I'm a paralegal who handles most of those. So
Okay,
I
and
wanted to mention that we also do work in education law as well. So we help with 504 plans, IEPs, making sure that your kid is getting access to the right kind of accommodations for their education as well.
Did I get everybody's name?
Okay, here we go, raffle time. Raúl Ortiz.
Thank you.
Raúl. We have more than one in there now. Seth. Dina. Steven Reyes. Miss Wood, Mariola Wood. Now, I'm going to turn this over to Patricia, who's going to introduce the next session here in a second.
So, and just to honor all of Juana's hard work, which we didn't let her do, because we're all getting to know each other. So Juana and I are interested in answering a couple questions, which is like, okay, I know the job titles that you all have, but really we are curious is like, what are all the jobs that you're actually asked to do? Okay, so those are two things. And then we can send this in a follow-up survey. And then in order to do those jobs well, what resources do you need? And also how to politely say no. What kind of resources do you need to sort of help you have boundaries and do things professionally and be respected? So we care about you and the quality of work that you want to do. So we will send that in a survey, and we're hoping that if you how to do advocacy with your bosses, and how to not take it home at night. So all that, anything that you need, please let us know. So on that note, we're going to invite our Jeanette and Maria, Maria, and Roger. Is Roger coming up? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so
The gentleman at the back.
then I didn't know it was coming up here, so I'm gonna hand it off. Well, and then we'll come in the camera, I'm gonna hand you, and then I'm gonna hand these out for you. Okay.
We're gonna play a fun game of communication and interpretation. You ready? Hands on. Let's do something. See, instead of just listening to us. Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Every 4 or 5 people. Yeah.
Can you guys handle that?
It's a fun game. Yeah.
One for every 4 people.
You're so excited, everybody.
Just take the group and then, I'm going to pass this one down. Okay, so one for every 4 people. So you don't, yeah, you don't need that.
Okay,
Has everybody played the telephone game? Well, as you might suspect, that is not a fun game for deaf people to play. Because it would not work, right? Okay, so we have a different version of this game. So you all have a sheet of paper that looks like, not like the instructions.
Like this.
Like, yeah, looks like this.
Every
Okay.
4 or 5 people.
So you've got them in a group. So what I want you to do is the first person writes a sentence up here. You can make it about your job. You can make it about your home. There you go. Yes. So you can use one of these examples if you want. You can do whatever you want. They say like the dragon protected his gold in the cave on top of the mountain. It's complicated. It's raining cats and dogs. Or I got cut off in traffic this morning and I'm mad. Or whatever. You could write, I'm going to give you a ticket for driving 175 miles an hour in a 25 zone. Whatever you want to write. And then you hand it to the person next to you. They have to draw what you wrote. Then is when it gets fun. I want you then, if you're the person who drew the picture, you fold it over so you can't see the words anymore. And you hand it to the next person. They have to write a sentence about what you drew. And then you fold it over again, and the next person has to draw a picture based on what the sentence was based on the picture. So it goes back and forth, sentence, picture, and then at the end, you have a sentence based on a picture. Everybody got it? Go! You're going to see how good you do with communication. Sorry, I stole your paper.
But nobody looked. So who's gonna look? Who's gonna draw his finger? Okay, so don't look. We can look.
No, yeah. You're supposed to look. I can see what. Yeah, I can see what. Don't look. Oh my God. So tú lo vas a llenar. No, pues hazlo, no, pues ella dibújalo.
I don't want to draw.
Sí, dibújalo. Cualquier cosa, no. No, pero no es que draw. Nunca un dibujo va a hacerlo.
No, pero tú tienes que. Right? You'll take a turn. Don't make fun of my stick figure.
No, pero él dibuja ese. No. Pasado, ella va a dibujar algo. Cuando veamos que dibujó ella, nosotros vamos a seguir lo que pensamos que So, no nos dejes ver qué escribiste. Solo el dibujo.
You regret your sentence? You regret your sentence or what happened?
Entendí mal.
Ah, vale, no pasa nada.
Entendí mal.
No, ahora ya.
No, que es una sentencia.
No la entendí.
Sí. En ella hace el dibujo. Estamos bien.
Es que son muchas cosas en la cabeza.
I wish I didn't look. Ahora qué hacemos, tú hiciste como él hizo coso.
Ahora tienes que tapar el Tyro y nosotros decimos que oh, mira la cara perdida. Call for service.
Huh?
Call for service.
No, well, I mean, it's something like that. It's a saying that we have as law enforcement. It's along those.
Why do we ask that for?
It's along those
¿Por qué
lines.
contamos esa llamada? Call service. ¿Para qué? What's our mission with the people?
Protect it.
Protect. He wasn't supposed to be like that.
What was it supposed to be?
He just wrote it down without you telling him. I'm lost again.
I am lost too. El teléfono, no sé de quién es ese.
No es Puerto Rico, ¿verdad? Ah, Kelvin. Kelvin, 939 de Puerto Rico. 939. Sí, lo vi. ¿Qué más va por aquí?
Whatever, we're doing all the
Dime, dime. ¿Qué Hace un tiempo empezaron a ir de Puerto Rico, me se me han olvidado. Se encuentra en Nueva York, por el teatro, que siempre hay familia allá. Yo también, ahí viene otra nueva. Ya la tengo ya. Ya la tengo ya. Ese es mi número. Hace un año y medio ya. Yo tengo que mirarlo rápido. No lo he visto. Está guardado.
Sí, no sale 8 tras 9, sale escrito. Probably.
Pero en algún momento la veo.
Tengo sueño. Estoy aburrido.
Hace un año y medio ya. A mí me interesa los
Dale, tú hablas.
Ignore my previous card.
Oh, you should have put amor. No, so there's a thing, right? So I called him amor. So now he calls him amor. Parece que los tres estamos llamándonos amor. ¿Te gusta el tono, right?
Y así era que la hacía al principio.
Sí, eso está muy bonito.
Hasta el primer ¿por qué estás triste? No, pero no me hagas triste.
No, you're good.
Okay. The game is over.
Push!
You guys are,
Say hush!
Listen.
Hey, they talking. Muy bien, ahí. Gracias.
Okay. So is everybody done with the game? Yes.
You done with the fun game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So I guess we're gonna ask them each to.
Let's read some examples. Would you read the first sentence, someone in your group, the first sentence and the last sentence, just to see if there's any connection between them? Someone super brave?
There you go.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, have one.
Alright, the first sentence was the house is on fire. The last one is the house is on fire and there's fire.
Okay, perfect, great. Thank you.
Someone else?
Yeah.
My dog likes ice cream and cappuccino or cat ice cream.
Oh, okay. Muy bien. ¿Más?
I got one. Rocky was the best movie made. I like driving fast.
Okay. Some misunderstanding there. Maybe. There's another one there, the gentleman.
A deputy is killed, and the last one is the officer is eating a goat.
Oh, wow. But not bad. This group communicates pretty well, I guess. They draw, yeah.
A quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The dogs are chasing each other.
Okay. There are dogs there. Can both.
The happy person inside the car parked between the two trees. A person inside of the
Más? More? One more?
Okay, there's one more here.
Okay.
I got up on the left foot and I'm late for work.
Okay. Perfect. So, what are we doing this game? Just to give you
Well, we all hear the expression, something gets lost in translation. And, you know, one of the ways we test to see how well somebody is doing is we translate what somebody has translated, And I will tell you that nobody ever gets it right. You guys did pretty good. Some of you. The Rocky is the best picture and I drive fast. I'm working on that one. But I gotta go see how it got there. Some of you got pretty close. So yeah, there are some sentences that are not hard to interpret, and I'm not going to comment at all on the fact that the officer is eating a donut is the one that you guys did the best on. I'm just feeding a little bit into the stereotype, but I'm not going to say that. So, you know, but yeah, there are some things that are easy to interpret and some things that are very hard to interpret, and it's important just to recognize, I know we did it for fun, but this is what happens. And I interpret into sign languages, and I can tell you that there are some things that don't translate. There are a bunch of words for which there are no signs, and there are a bunch of signs for which there are no words, and so I will get close, but if you like interpreted that and then the next person interpreted that, it can sometimes get from Rocky's the best picture to I'm driving fast. But thank you all for at least playing along. Appreciate that.
Muy bien. Okay. See, so let's go to the boring stuff now, okay? I'm gonna give you another lesson. Maybe after everything we've learned, I don't need the mic.
And you do.
Oh, I need to be here.
And you gotta, yeah.
I don't. Okay. So, let's go to the boring stuff maybe. But after everything you've learned and we've been talking about today, I wanted to let you know a little bit more about the skills that you learn when you're bilingual, if you learn a second language, right? And the skills that you develop compared to language skills when you become an interpreter, right? So if we look at the language skills, when we learn a second language, we learn terminology, vocabulary, grammar, sentence structure, right? Comprehension, that's always a hard word for me. Reading and writing and so on, right? Language use, register from formal to informal, casual, bad words, all of that. Dialect, different accents, right, that we have in Spanish. The Spanish that I speak is not the same Spanish from Puerto Rico. We understand each other, but there's sometimes words that is like, are you insulting me? Should I be laughing or punch you in your face? I don't know what to do, right? And enunciation, pronunciation is different. False cognates, sometimes between languages, it seems the same word, but the meaning is pretty different. Am I loud?
Oh, that's.
Oh, us. The interpreters. And I'm an interpreter too. Okay. Body language, right? For instance, in Italian, what is that? Oh, I don't care, or, right? We learn that when we learn all the languages, we learn all these skills. What is the difference when I'm being an interpreter? The role and ethics, okay? I need to protect myself and I need to protect the rest too, but especially myself, right? I need to start to listening. It's not the same, you know, when you listen but you don't really pay attention, you go, yeah, like you right now maybe. But when you're interpreting, like she's doing right now, she's really concentrated in everything I'm saying and really bringing it to another culture, not just another language, it's to another culture, right? That's extremely hard to learn how to listen, but listening, paying attention, right? Memory, I need to retain everything that I'm hearing. I need to retain it for a short period of time, but that's hard to do. Multitasking, message analysis. First, I need to decode everything that I'm hearing, decoding it and coding it again in a second language or culture, right? That's multitasking. At the same time, now, that person there is suffering so much. And she's almost like sweating. She cannot laugh and she's laughing. And critical thinking, because everything needs to make sense that is coming out of my mouth, right? That is hard to do. It takes years to master something like this. Quick thinking, just thinking of
communication. For instance, if you have some speech impediment, you need to work on that to overcome it and be clear when you're speaking, right? Note taking. Sometimes we need to take notes depending on the type of interpreting that we are doing. Professional demeanor. Stamina. Patience. We work with people. You work with people too. Sometimes you want to kill them, right? But you don't. You're thinking about it, but it's like, no. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to control myself. So it's the same. She wants to kill me now, probably, but she's not going to do it. Good interpersonal skills also. General knowledge. You need to be curious and be aware of everything around you and in the world. Because sometimes in conversations, anything can happen. They could be talking about absolutely anything. They can make a joke. How do you interpret a joke for it to be fun in a different culture? Not a different language, but a different culture. Muy difícil, very, very difficult, right? And prediction. That means to study. I need to know well the field to be able to what they might be talking about. I'm going to be ready and I'm going to do my best to give the best quality, right? So that takes study skills to predict what they might be talking about, and I'm going to prepare myself before a session. Muy bien, pues esto. Next one. You like it?
Yeah.
Right. So what is a professional meeting? Now you go.
Now I go. Let you rest.
Yes.
We're gonna let Mom
And the
rest.
gentleman at the back, so.
Yeah. You're coming. Okay, so something that is helpful for you guys when you are trying to figure out if do you need an interpreter or can you do this yourselves. So there are a few things that you can do to try to see whether they are understanding you or not. One thing is asking them to repeat what you just asked them. We see a lot people that after they're asked something, they say, and that doesn't mean that they understood anything. It just means that they have no idea what you just said. And there are cultural differences as well that we might just say that because we're not going to ask for clarification. So trying to see if they understand what you just said is a good way of knowing what level of language they have. That way you can know whether they need an interpreter or if you can speak with them in English or in the other language. If you're planning on taking them to court or interrogating them or anything that is official in that way, it is always better to have an interpreter because many of these things will be challenged in court, and the last thing that you want is for a case to be thrown because you did not use an interpreter. So that those are some of the times where it's important to have interpreters. Don't assume that people speak conversational English or that they understand everything because they might get a, they can do daily things. They go to the store, they might have simple conversations. That doesn't mean that they have a high level of English to be able to understand a lot of the things that go on in court or when you are interrogating them. Something that Maria mentioned earlier when she was in her court case, how sometimes if it's not your first language, if it's not your native language, and you are in a stressful situation, it's very difficult to understand because your mind just is blocked, you're stressed. So it's really hard to understand. When you're working with victims, even if they speak English, sometimes it's just easier to speak about these things in your first language. In the language in which the abuse happened, it's just easier to express it, or the language that where you learn to express all these feelings is just easier. Even for me, it's very hard sometimes to just express. You have to think about the feeling, how do I say this, and see if it makes sense.
and many times you are not able to really express everything that you want to express. And what interpreters do is allow people to have autonomy, because they do have the right to express what they want to express the way they feel more comfortable. And if that is not their first language, it's very difficult to really express what they feel.
I was just going to add one problem that I often see with people who are deaf is that somebody may be able to talk. That does not mean they are able to hear. So one of my children, 4 of my children are deaf. So one of my sons, his speech, I understand. I don't listen to him much, but you know, that's a different conversation. But his speech is understandable. But he does not understand you. But often, what is like the one question asking a deaf person is just like a waste of time. But it's the one, quite frankly, that the police asked the first time. Can you read my lips? Well, if you can read my lips, then I will understand the question. If I can't read your lips, I won't know what you asked me. But there's a thing called the deaf nod. I am told by those people who work more with the Hispanic community than I do that it's the same thing in Spanish. I have no idea what you're saying, but if I nod my head enough, you will stop asking me questions and I can go home. And that works until you're typing this to a police officer when now you're under arrest. So, it's important to recognize that just because somebody nods or says yes or acts like they are. My wife, who you'll meet later on, and she knows I tell this story all the time. And you can't tell her, ha ha ha, because Karina, who we have an interpreter, you can tell her through her. My wife is very good at acting like she understands conversations all the time. I have people tell me, oh, your wife is such a good lip reader, and I watch the conversation. This is my wife. I know, she has no idea what you just said. So don't depend on your cues that you think they're understanding, and that could be true of Spanish or, it doesn't make any difference what the language is. You all know this, people who live in communities that are not always comfortable around law enforcement are going to try to fit in, they're going to try to be friendly, they're going to try to do what they think you should be doing. And so the problem with when do you decide to get an interpreter? If you wait too late, you're stuck. So, we generally tell people if you're going to give them a Miranda warning, that means you plan on doing something with that later on. Deaf people are like everybody else. What are they going to try and do in court? What are they going to try and do? What does everybody else want to do when they go to court? Not go to jail, right. They want to get out of it, right? So even if they understood you, and I have no reason to think that people who speak Spanish or any other language are any different, they're going to say, you're not qualified. Now if you don't have a piece of paper that says you are, you have an uphill battle. So just realize that all of your hard work might be for nothing if you're not careful. Sort of my warning.
Also, just adding one more thing. Sometimes it's very common for interpreters. We are given a piece of paper and they say, read that into another language, right? That is called sight translation or traducción a la vista, which is from one language translated verbally to another language, right? If it's something very short, very simple, that's not a problem. But sometimes there are really long things, even multi-papers, like 2 or 3 papers, and it's much better if you guys explain whatever that paper says to the other person, and we interpret your words. We will interpret your explanation instead of just reading from a paper. It's very hard to do it. So yeah, because that happens pretty often. Yeah.
Okay. So this is something that we usually need to explain a lot. How do you work with professional interpreters? Because there are a lot of
understanding of what interpreters do. So because as Maria was mentioning before, we do have a code of ethics and we have to follow certain rules and we have to be impartial and transparent and things have to be accurate. We need to make sure that we are interpreting the context and not just words. And so how do we do that? How do you know if we are actually doing that and how we keep accuracy? So for example, she was speaking a little fast earlier when
What?
and that is something that happens a lot. People just talk fast or they read documents or they do things like that. So for us, we have to ask usually to slow down. We have what we call interventions that allows us to work with other people and tell them, please slow down or speak louder, because if I can hear you, I cannot interpret anything. If I don't understand what you're saying, I cannot interpret. We mentioned before, we are not walking dictionaries, so we don't know everything. And there might be things that we, even if we are certified core interpreters, we might not be familiar with. So you will find interpreters asking you for clarification because we need to understand. That is the only way we can interpret correctly, is if we understand. That also means that we interpret in the first person. So that means that you are not talking to me, you are talking to the individual, directly to them. I'm just listening to your words and interpreting, and I am interpreting in the first person. So if they say, I felt, that's exactly what you will hear. I'm not gonna say she felt. I will talk as if it was me. And the same way, what you say, we will interpret in the first person. That is one of the first rules that we learn in interpretation. It is important to know that because we have a code of ethics and we have to be impartial, we are going to interpret everything that is said. That is part of how we provide accuracy. And accuracy doesn't mean necessarily that all the words are going to be there. As I said before, it's context what we interpret. So it's the idea, whatever they're saying, we need to make sure that it makes sense in the other language, and that you can understand what they're saying, as if they spoke that language. I think, as far as knowing, so when you need to have an interpreter and you know that once you have evaluated if there is a need for an interpreter, it's also important to look for someone who has the credentials. As we were saying before, just someone that speaks the language does not necessarily have the skills to interpret. There has to be, there are technical skills that we have to learn. There is other knowledge, and there is also the knowledge of the subject matter, which in this case will be for law enforcement. So not everybody has those words, and they are very different from one country to the other. As we said, even when you don't have someone who is professional and who is trained, you are also risking that information will be also challenged. So it's not just that when you ask those questions, but if you don't have professional interpreters, that can also happen.
Oh, it's fun when you use somebody else's computer.
idioms, okay, and expressions.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So there are things that we also want to mention, and I'll let Roger speak in a second. And is that sometimes there are words that in one language they sound the same in Spanish, and Roger will speak about sign language, but they don't mean the same. These are those false cognates, and if you don't use the language all the time, it's just very easy to assume that one word means what the other word looks like it could mean, but usually it's not. This second word here, intoxicated versus intoxicado, there was actually a very famous case in Florida about 30 years ago. A Hispanic boy, well, young man, 18 years old, was taken to the hospital and somebody used the word intoxicado. Well, intoxicado in Spanish means that you have food poisoning. But there was no interpreter, and obviously what they thought is, okay, well, he's drunk, we're just gonna let him sleep it off. Well, that caused a delay in finding out what this guy actually had, and he ended up being quadriplegic, and a lawsuit of $70 million for the hospital. Plus the stress of everybody, the guilt of the family that said the word intoxicado, feeling like it's their fault because they said that word. The guilt of the doctors, all the stress and all the paperwork and all the things that brings for one word that somebody thought they knew what it was.
I was interpreting, and a police officer said, "Do you really think you can get 12 people to believe you?" What does that mean? Somebody tell me, what do you think that means? A jury. Well, you have to know that a jury has 12 people, and that when you're talking in legal settings, that 12 people means a jury. For lots of complicated reasons that have to do with the failure of the American educational system for deaf people, which we're not going to solve today, a lot of deaf people don't know what a jury is. They don't know it's 12 people. So telling them 12 people, but then do I have to then explain? If you use that phrase, I now have to explain what a jury is. I have to explain what a judge is, and that's not any of that. What's a rap sheet? Isn't it like the piece of music that certain musicians use? No? So, if you spelled, like there are people who know, how many of you, just out of curiosity, if you want to raise your hand just a little bit, it's okay. How many of you know finger spelling? Okay, so we're going to pick on this poor young lady here who was brave enough to raise her hand. Yay! If she spelled rap sheet, which is just fine, okay, that does not mean the deaf person is going to know what a rap sheet is. Because I'm fairly sure you did not mean the piece of music. Right? Probably not. But they're only going to know, if I said rap to my son, the only word he knows for rap is music. And yes, my deaf kids listen to music. Too loud and not good. I had somebody who told me, who came to my office and they said they hadn't yet gone to court. So I called the court and they said, yeah, they've been to court, they've been found guilty. I was the gentleman in the back who told the story. And he said, no, not yet. I said, well, what do you mean not yet? They said I have to go before the judge. Every time I go, the judge is already there. I'm never there before the judge. So he is waiting to go before the judge. But he's always after the judge. In English, we have two meanings of the word before. Actually, there's more than that. If you ever look in the dictionary, every word's got like 30 meanings. But the sign language and English are not structured anything close, so you can never make that mistake in sign because they're completely different signs for before and time and before in place. Right. What does right mean? So, if you know finger spelling and you spell the word right, there's no way of knowing, did you mean correct? So like let's say you spelled, you have right to remain silent. Some of you probably have said that once or twice. If you spelled that, do you know what most deaf people, sadly, because most deaf people read at about 4th grade. Now, my wife who gets here, she has multiple master's degrees. Even though one's from Clemson, she still reads better than 4th grade. I'm in Columbia, I thought that was safe, no? Wrong. Okay, anyway. But one of my girls who joined our family when she was 12 reads at 2nd grade. She never went to school before she joined our family. And 12 years old is too late to start school. So she reads at 2nd grade. Her 4th grade son reads better than she does. If she saw the word right, silent, you are telling her she is correct to be quiet. It's not what you meant to say. So the word, and right's an obnoxious word. You have right like the opposite of left. You have the right correct. You can ride a boat, which is totally different again. Somebody was told they were being written up. What does that mean? The deaf person was trying to figure out why they were going to write it up on the wall. They didn't know they were in trouble. So all these idioms, and this is sometimes a problem with folks who are bilingual as opposed to interpreting, because if you may know the word, you may know a word, but you may not know that in English, and I am assuming Spanish is like every other language in the world, there's 400 meanings for some of these words. So you may know one-to-one meaning, but maybe don't know some of the other strange meanings of words, or the obscure meanings of words. So it's just, I had somebody who was in a traffic accident, and the police were talking to him, and he said, okay, I'll tell you why. He confessed to everything. Do you know why he confessed? Because the hospital had already told the police what had happened. And I said, what do you mean the hospital already told the police? He said, yeah, I have proof. So he runs to his room, and he brings back a piece of paper. What do you think was stamped in big red letters across the front of his medical record that told him he'd already confessed?
Confidential.
Not confidential. Good guess, but wrong. Admitted. So he knew the hospital had already told the police that he had admitted to the crime. So he figured he would tell the police. That was actually not a good thing. But so this difference without an interpreter, because the signs for admission and admitted are very different. You would never make that mistake. But sign language and English don't match. So it gets complicated.
You.
Okay, so just more words to have fun. Something that comes up a lot is this assault and assault. So asalto for most Spanish speakers is when you're being mobbed. It's a robbery. Has nothing to do with asalto. So when you tell somebody that they are being charged with asalto, many times they're like, but I didn't do anything. That's nobody. You know, or assault and battery, and you say asalto y batería. Batería, like what type of battery are we talking about? And those are things that as interpreters we know, because we have to study and make sure that we know all these technical words. Now, even when it's not technical battery, it's not necessarily bateria. Another one that is actually probably very dangerous is molest versus molestar. Molestar is to bug somebody, to, you need to just leave them alone. But molest is not. So if somebody comes to you or says that, mi hermano me molesta, they are not necessarily saying that their brother is molesting them. They're saying that their brother is bothering them. And you can imagine what could happen if someone hears that and then, law enforcement gets involved. And if you don't have a professional interpreter, this won't be figured out, and there are just very bad consequences for the people that are involved in things like this. So it is important to know that because we're interpreters, that's what we're thinking about. We're thinking about meaning, we're thinking about what's being said, the words that we're using, the context. We are thinking about all of that when we are working. When you are doing your job, you have different things that you're thinking about because your job is not to be an interpreter. So there are red flags that we have and red flags that you may have in your job, but for us, it's context, it's understanding, it's communication. And that is why it's important to know if you need a professional interpreter to find one, either, spoken languages, sign language, to make sure that that person understands, but also to make sure that you understand. Because the interpreter is not just for the people that don't speak English or that are deaf. The interpreter is for you, or for the people that, if you encounter a deaf individual, if you don't know how to sign, can you understand them? No. So you need an interpreter so you can understand them. And that is something that is important to grasp as well. The interpreter is there for both, which is why we're impartial, because we are there just to make sure that communication happens and that there is understanding between the parts. And with that, Maria.
And we have a video for you.
Yes.
A funny one, okay? Can we hear sound here with any technician? David? El técnico de sonido, por favor.
And job creator, Dave McCormick has a plan to help the middle class cut wasteful spending.
Your name, ma'am?
Maria.
Last name?
Maria.
No, your last name.
Sí, Maria.
What about a middle name?
Maria.
Can I please see some ID?
1 second, 1 second.
Your name, ma'am?
Okay.
Maria.
Maria.
Last name?
Maria.
No, your last name.
Sí, Maria.
What about a middle name?
Maria.
Can I please see some ID, ma'am? So what exactly happened today?
Pues estaba trabajando, ¿no? En el bar usualmente. Y llega un chico y ordena un tequila. Y luego otro, y otro, y otro. Y 6 tequilas después, se me va sin pagar.
Ma'am, you know I can't understand shit, right? Can we get a translator in here?
Interpreter.
Hola.
¿Es ese el güey que me robó el tequila?
She said she wants some tequila. So this is serious. She can get a drink on her own time. Por favor, no digas que fue yo.
Es que tú me robaste, eres un criminal.
No, no lo soy. Solo tenía mucha sed.
Criminal.
She says the guy was a criminal. Yes, we know that. Tell her to describe him. Quiere que describas al hombre.
¿El hombre es tú?
No le voy a decir eso.
Pues perfecto, mira, está chaparrito, latino, tiene un bigotón y tiene una camisa azul con una corbata.
She says he's tall, white, blonde hair, and no tie. Good. Ask her if she's sure that he was white. Wait, why does that matter? A white guy drinking tequila in the morning? Come on, good point. Le pregunta que si está seguro que es gringo.
¿Y pues eso qué importa?
Él no cree que un gringo tome tequila.
Ah, no, pues sí, buen punto.
Yeah, definitely a white guy. Okay, ask her what happened after the incident. Si no dices nada, cubro tu turno en el para toda la semana.
Trato hecho, dale.
She says she doesn't know. Does she have any other information? ¿Tú qué haces esa noche?
No, pues nada. De pronto verme un episodio de ese show Game of Thrones.
She says she has no more information. Ask her if the bar has a security camera. ¿En qué temporada andas?
Yo acabando de terminar la 6ª temporada.
She says no camera. Okay, then. That's fine.
En realidad, ¿cómo agarraste un trabajo como traductor? Tienes que ser inteligente, ¿no?
She wants to turn herself in. What? Yeah, she just admitted to stealing from the bar herself. Are you serious? Ask her if she means that. ¿Te gusta mucho Game of Thrones?
Sí.
Sí. Holy shit, man. I'm afraid you're under arrest.
A ver, ¿qué dijo?
Dice que gracias por tu cooperación. Who the hell are you?
¿Quién es este, eh?
Oh, I'm the translator. I was told my services are needed. Then who are you? No hablo inglés.
María.
Did you do that in the past? I hope not.
So that's what happens when you don't have a professional interpreter. Okay, so this is just some information about my company. And I heard earlier.
Oh, see.
I heard earlier.
Some of you were talking about the need of having on-site interpreters, and that is something that we try to make sure that we teach our providers, law enforcement, all the organizations that work with multilingual people, that there are some instances in which having an on-site interpreter is better than trying to use the phone or trying to use video. Especially things that have to do with trauma, that have to do with sensitive things. It is important to always try to find an on-site interpreter. I know that it's not always possible, and so there are options. There are on-demand services where you just call and get somebody on the phone. Those are good options for quick, simple conversations, to ask very simple questions, but not for an interrogation or to try to get, for a forensic interview or things like that. That should not be the case. There are also services that are provided over video. Some of those are on demand. Again, is for something that requires, that doesn't require a lot of technicality, because interpreters are usually providing services for these on-demand features. They are, they answer all kinds of calls. So they may be interpreting for an insurance company and then interpreting for a doctor's office, and so they're not necessarily specialized in what you need. And that's why it's important that those services are used only for very simple things. It is very difficult to always find the languages. There are some languages that we just don't have qualified people in the area that we can send you an on-site interpreter. And for that, in our company, we have the option of scheduling a video remote interpreter. What that does is that we are able to screen those those interpreters, to know who is going to interpret, know their background, if they are specialized. We have all this information and we are able to match somebody with those skills to the case, so you know exactly what you're getting. We have done that for languages that are, you know, I heard mentioning Farsi, that is a language that is hard to find. And again, if you are still, you might find someone who speaks the language. That doesn't mean that they have the skills to be interpreters. So we try to make sure that we can cover as much as we can on site for these very sensitive situations. But if not, then these are some of the other options that we have. But again, something that I know that most people use Language Line, and that is a great service for quick, simple conversations. We always try to make sure that you guys understand that it's a risk to try to use these services for something that is more serious, because it could be a problem. There could be a lot of misunderstanding, and sometimes these interpreters are not even in the States. They might be in another country, so it's even harder.
We're doing the same all the time. So my commercial. First of all, if you ever need an interpreter, I would definitely call Janet, Hit Services. Because I've been working as an academic, I've been working with different agencies around South Carolina, and the only one that I would trust right now is Hit Services. And she's not paying me anything, I promise. Maybe later. From now on, maybe. But no, and as I said earlier, I work for USC Upstate. We have a minor in translation and Spanish, translation and interpreting studies. We also have a community interpreting certificate. Right now, we only have educational, so to work as an interpreter in schools. I would love, David, in the future, to create with Hit Services, actually maybe a course where we can do the same that we do for educational settings, but for law enforcement settings, where you guys could get maybe certified, trained, or people that are bilingual out there that want to help you to do the same, right? But something specifically to work for law enforcement. Not court, because court is one thing, but law enforcement is something different, right? Or victim advocates, right? So I would love to do that in the future, maybe, maybe not, depending on the resources, but this is the beginning, and it's a very good start. And just to let you know, can I use one of these papers that are here, the big post-its? Tricia, can I use this big, one of these? Can I use one? See? Okay. So what I'm going to ask you something super simple. In UC Upstate, we used to have a Spanish major, okay, combined with a minor in translation and interpreting. Right now, they are erasing that. They are erasing a whole community, and they're going to call it world language. Nothing with Spanish, nothing with French. It doesn't make any sense to me. But we don't have sometimes enough. I'm going to get in trouble to say all of this, but I don't care. Because what I'm going to ask you, because the Chancellor is supporting us a lot, but there are people in between that want to erase the word Spanish, and that's erasing a whole community. They want to call it world language. Spanish is not world language. Spanish is part of America. We're here, right? And it's part of this, and it has been for a very long time. American Sign Language is not world language, because it's also under that umbrella. It's American, right? It's here. And many other languages that are growing those communities are part of this. Like the sheriff said this morning, I think his message was extremely powerful and very related to what I'm asking you to do. If you have time with your phones, I'm gonna put in there the Chancellor's email, because he said if you have people in the community that can send me an email, short email, just saying Spanish matters, and Spanish matters because of this, this, and that, according to your job and from your position, from your perspective. That is going to be super powerful, because then he can use that against those people that are saying, we're going to call all of these now world languages and cultures, and Spanish is disappearing. It's really disappearing from the university. So if you could help me with that, I would really appreciate it, because again, Spanish matters, we're here to stay, and languages are important, and cultures are important, and it's beautiful that we can coexist and respect each other's communities in the same state, area, country, whatever. So gracias, and, well, sorry, the gentleman at the back, you want to say something else? You good? You have something to sell? You want to sell something? No? You good?
I'm quite busy being
Advertising, no, nada? Okay, so anyway, that's it. But thank you so much for your attention, and you did really well. You're still awake, not like my students. Good. Gracias.
Right before the next presentation, just reminding everybody, like she said, this is the first step. My goal is, with the language access team, is to start a certification or some kind of background to help the bilingual deputies, victim advocates, and all these other people that are in the profession helping law enforcement and the criminal justice system, so we have something. And I know that other states have that already, but it's okay. At least we're gonna get it right. So we're gonna turn this over to Patricia here, so she could introduce.
Well, I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. So they're going to need a few minutes to get up here, but just on a small logistical note as we kind of head into the last hour. So at the tail end of this panel presentation that's next, I'm going to quietly pass around the sign out sheet for victim service providers so that it's not a mad rush at the door and you all can get home. So I just wanted to remind you that this sign out sheet is only for people who need victim service provider credit. If you do not need that and you don't have a VSP number, please pass it to your friend. I'm just gonna pass them around, and if it doesn't get to you by the time we sort of finish up the programming, I'll have it in the back. So just remember, don't forget to sign out if you need that credit, okay? Thank you, and I'm gonna turn it over to Anna.
Thank you. We need a few minutes. I don't know where Cindy is. Yes, please chat amongst yourselves for a little bit.
Sí, pero él no es mi café anymore, pero que dice no siempre es necesario, pues por lo menos tiene esa hora, porque como cuando yo café de services, yo nunca, I never did anything and I kind of regret it. You look cool, you look cool. Ya pon la mano para abajo, por favor. No se ve bonito.
Yo te llamo cuando voy con ellos, cuando yo solo sé, vamos al de la base.